Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew. Today I'm doing the best video, my favorite video that I haven't filmed it. I'm filming it right now, but we're going to discuss my favorite books that I read in the year 2021, which is so exciting. So I have read 103 books as of right now in this moment. So we're going to discuss my top 10. So only 10. I do not have any honorable mentions. There are books that I enjoyed and gave 5 stars that are not on this list, but these are ranked. We're going to discuss these in order from what is my least favorite up to my number 1 favorite. And I'm kind of cheating. When we get to number 1, you'll see, I'll explain it. But we're calling it a top 10, even though I'm cheating. But everyone else cheats, and it's my channel, and it's fun, and I don't care, and it's not that big of a deal. So starting at number 10, we have Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, which is the second book in the Scythe trilogy, which is a trilogy that's all about a futuristic society where there is no disease and people do not die. So they have to form sort of a type of government or council, if you will, to kill people off. But there's also a Thunderhead, which is this big artificial intelligence thing going on, and I loved this book. I loved this book so much. It's one of my favorite books I read this year, and it was so good. And you're introduced to a new character in this book, but like you still meet the other characters from the first book, and this is easily my favorite in the series. Easily my absolute favorite in the series. I loved it so much. I love all of these like philosophical questions that are posed in the first book and the second book, and this book was so good. It was so good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't have a whole lot to say. So this book was just phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I loved it so much. Number 9 is going to be Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who is really high up there and my favorite authors. I have read 4 of her works at this point. I have read Evelyn Hugo, I've read Daisy Jones and the Six, I have read this, and I've also read her novella. And I think all 4 of those books made me at least tear up, if not cry. So this is a book that follows Nina Riva, who is the daughter of Mick Riva, and her siblings, and just her life circumstances and how she is kind of forced to take care of them in a way, and how she just is kind of like forced to grow up too soon. But her and her siblings just find all this like solace in surfing in a way. But there's just all this discussion about, you know, what you want out of life. And there's just a really good romance between like her parents. Like you kind of get her whole parents' romance in the first half of the book. And this book has a lot, but I know a lot of people don't like this book, or they're really disappointed in this book. No, I love this book. I liked this book more than Daisy Jones and the Six. So I was not disappointed whatsoever. I love Daisy Jones and the Six, but I like this even more. But there's no way she could top Evelyn Hugo. I'm sorry, Taylor. I just don't think you're gonna top Evelyn Hugo. It's amazing. It's a masterpiece. But this was also really, really freaking good. And I will read all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I am planning on reading her entire backlist as time goes on. One of my absolute favorite authors, easily. Then we have number 8 on the list, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is about what do they call him? What's the word? He's a caseworker, Linus Baker, and he has to go to this like house at the end of the Cerulean Sea and look at these kids and determine like if these kids are in a safe environment or not. And it's just an absolutely beautiful book about these 2 men who there's just some quotes in this book that I really, really enjoyed, but I just love the message of just like these kids, the kids are all right, you know, like the kids are all right. The kids are totally fine. They're being taken care of. Like they're not a threat in any way, shape, or form. And they're just wonderful, and they're so adorable, and they're so cute, and they all have their little quirks, and they all can do these really cool things, and it's beautiful. And I love this book so much. It's number 8. I definitely liked other things more. I know that a lot of people have this at number 1 when they read it last year, but it was 5-star read for me, so don't get me wrong. I loved it, but I liked other stuff more, so we'll get to that. Number 7 on my list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which had me crying a lot. I cried a lot. This is still relevant today. This is about Star Carter, who watches her best friend get shot, and there's just so much discussion about Star and who she is when she's around her family versus who she is when she's at her school that's fully like it's an all-white school, and there's just discussion of Star and her identities and how she has these like juxtaposed identities and how she slips from one to the other and how she's trying to manage this way of like reconciling the two of them. And it's just such a good book that deserves all the hype that it gets. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's such a good book. and the characters in this story are unforgettable. And like Star is just, she's one of my favorite characters I read this whole year. Easily a 5-star book, easily. I don't know what else to say. It was absolutely iconic. If you haven't read it, it took me a long time to read it because I wasn't even reading any books, but then, you know, stuff happened. This is so good. I still haven't seen the movie. I know I need to watch the movie, but if you haven't read this, highly recommend it for sure. Number 6 is gonna be Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which I can't say that I enjoyed this book because it is absolutely just it's so impactful. If you don't know, it's about Chanel Miller. She was the girl who was raped behind a dumpster at Stanford University in California, and Brock Turner was like let out of jail because, you know, they didn't want to ruin his future. I can't say anything about this book that will do it justice. Like it just won't. Like Chanel Miller is a phenomenal writer, and the way she structured the story, the way the narrative is structured, the way it's delivered, the way the message gets across, like it should absolutely be required reading by all straight men. Need to read this book. And it's such a powerful book that seriously it just needs to be given to straight men. Like even me, I have so many female friends that I know have had traumatizing experiences, and it's just so phenomenal. Like I learned something in this book. She just puts it into perspective, just like this sense of relentlessness that she felt. Like it's just insane. It was such a powerful book. So this is as far as like hard-hitting books, this is like the number one recommendation for like if you like hard-hitting books. The rest of the books I just enjoyed on a level that was fun. So that's where this is. This is number 6 on my list, and I can't say enough good things. Easily a 5-star read. Also, number 5, we have Heartstopper Volume 4, which I absolutely sobbed in this book. This graphic novel, like this is it's the 4th volume in a male-male romance, and the way that Alice Oseman talks about mental health is so beautiful in this book. I have no critiques of this book. I think that these graphic novels are amazing. The fact that these exist and that teenagers can read these right now, they're so lucky. They're so lucky to have this. I feel like this message and what happens in here, it's the 4th volume, so I can't really, it's just boy meets boy. And it's very adorable, but there are so many other LGBT characters in the whole series that you meet, and cannot wait for the Netflix adaptation. It's going to be amazing. But man, the emotional impact that I experienced from this graphic novel is insane. It's insane. Nothing else has made me cry as much as this. So it has to be as high as possible on the list. Oh man, it was hard to rank these. It was really hard to rank these, but this is where it is. I can't wait to read it again. It didn't break me. It healed me. It had me just understand how to be in a relationship. Not that I'm in a relationship, but it just had me understand the value of relationship and the value of alone time and the value of just read it. Just read it. It's absolutely worth anyone's time, regardless of your gender, your sexual orientation. Like, it doesn't matter. Everybody, I think, could benefit from this series. Anyone, absolutely anyone. There you go. Number 4 on my list is We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson, which was also one of my most surprising reads of the year. And I had no expectations. Some people compare this to John Green, and I loved it. So I think I need to read some John Green books because I just loved it. I loved it. It's about Henry, this man he's like a boy. He's in high school, but he has 144 days to decide if he wants to push this red button or not, that these aliens have abducted him, and he has to decide if he's going to push it or not and save all of humanity or not. And I just really enjoyed like the writing and the message and just the male-male romance in the story, and I just thought it was so good. I really liked the romance in here a lot, but just also like the coming of age aspect to the story was so good, and like the discussion around like friendships and like just like what's important in life in a way. It was so well done. And I want to read more by Sean David Hutchinson for sure, easily. So that's number 4. Now we were going to get into my top 3. Now my top 3 and 2 are kind of interchangeable, I feel, because I like them for such similar. My number 1 is my number 1, and it's so easy, and it is so obvious if you have watched or you just look at my videos on my channel this year. I feel like it will be obvious. I could be wrong, but man. Number 3 is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which I don't know how to describe. I truly don't have words for this book, and I feel like some people think it's just vibes, but I feel like there is a plot to the book, and there is a really good message to the book, and there's a really good, just the writing in the book is so good. But it's about Laszlo Strange, who's obsessed with this hidden city, and he kind of gets like opportunity to go to the city and figure out all these like mysteries behind it, and you get 2 perspectives from these people, and it's just so good. And there's a girl who like screams moths out of her body every night. It sounds so ridiculous, but it just makes sense. It just absolutely makes sense. And I don't want this to be adapted. I don't want it to be adapted. It would look stupid, but in my mind, it's stunning. This is a pure example of I don't know what to say. I loved it. All I know is that I loved it. And I for sure need to read more by Miss Taylor. Okay, I for sure need to read it. It was so good, so good. It was easily 5 stars, so easily. This is a book that I know I will reread for sure, for sure. So this is number 3 on my list. Then we have number 2 on my list, which is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So this is my second favorite book that I read. Sorry, I know the angle's different now. My phone ran out of memory. Anyways, so I was saying number 2 is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which I absolutely loved because of the character and the writing and the storytelling techniques. You know, I think I am just like kind of a sucker for like a good narrative structure and like the way you can deliver a story. And I eat up when there's like stories within stories, and there's just like I have another edition of this book that I let my mom borrow because there is so many beautiful quotes about music, and she loves music. I was like, I think you should read this book. I think you'd like it. But I have it's a completely tabbed up version of said book, and this was just such a good book. And again, I'm bad at explaining these things, I guess, but it's so intriguing and mysterious, but like I was just happy to be along for the ride. I was so excited to just hear Kavoth's story and hear like all these like, again, it's like kind of philosophical in a way, and like of course I love that shit. So I just adored Kavoth, and like the way that they discuss like language and music and just words and just names having power, and just the magic system in here is just so fascinating. It was just such a pleasure to read this book, and I already have a full spoiler-free and spoiler-filled review for this book, so I can, and you're not going to get much more than what I'm saying in these like 2 minutes, but just that I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was very attached pretty quickly to Kavoth, or Quoth, or however you say it. I don't know. I just know that I like him a lot, and I know this book is mostly well loved, but I feel like there's some negative stuff I've seen of it, so I don't know. But I'm gonna recommend these. I feel like the majority of people, if you like this, you should read this. I really feel like if you like Laini Taylor's writing, and Patrick Rothfuss himself has praised Laini Taylor's writing in Daughter of Smoke and Bone. So I feel like the majority of people, I know some people who don't like this and they like this and they don't, and vice versa, but I'm telling you, if you like Laini Taylor, you need to read Rothfuss. And if you like Rothfuss, don't be afraid of young adult. Okay, don't be afraid of it. It's so good. But I don't know what else to say. You can check out my reviews if you want to hear more of my thoughts. There's not a whole lot more I can say, but yes, this is my number 2 read of the year. Okay, and my number 1 is a cheat because it's 4 books, but it is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I have never read, and I just cannot picture myself reading something that I like more than this. I read all 4 books twice this year when I read them for the first time this year. I don't know. I'm so attached to these characters, and I'm so attached to just like so many of these things. I took this paperback version of this book and I tabbed all of these pages in this book. I love the writing, the plot, and the characters. Like some of these other books, I love the plot, I love the writing, but this, I love it all. I love it all. I love the writing, the plot, the characters, the story, the narrative structure, the way the story is. I love the story. I love it so much. I have 0 critiques for the entire series except for like maybe one thing about the 4th book. But overall, I love this series more than anything else I have read all year. And I can't imagine anything topping this, like for a long time. Like I cannot imagine enjoying a book more than these books. Like this, so if you don't know what this is about, this is a series that takes place in the 1920s during the Prohibition era, and there are 6 main characters, and I love them all. I love all 6 of them. All of them equally. Not equally, but I love all of them so much. My favorite characters are easily Henry and Theta, and then Evie pretty much equally to Henry and Theta, and Memphis. Okay, wait. So I pretty much love Henry, Theta, Evie, Memphis, all four of them pretty equally. Jericho and Mabel, I like a little bit less, but I still love them. I still love them more than any other character in any of the other books that I read this year. So that's some serious, that's some serious power. For an author to have me attached to 6 main characters, some serious power. But they all have some sort of power themselves. But the story is really about like them and their lives and their backstories and just like how they've come to be about. And then there's like this whole external threat going on about, I love this series so much. I love it so much. And I'm not actually telling you what it's about, but they all have some sort of supernatural ability and they kind of like find each other. They come together and they just learn so much about each other. They learn so much about who they are through each other. And there is just some of my absolute favorite quotes in all of literature in book 1, book 2, book 3, and book 4. Like all 4 of these books are absolute knockouts. Like they are so good. If you like supernatural urban fantasy, like you are robbing yourself of joy. Like these are so much fun. And the humor in these books is so good. It's so good. If you like New York, I have never been so attached to characters in my life. Like never. These are my favorite characters in all of literature. So that is why all 4 books are at the number 1 spot. So it's really my top 14 books of the year, but you know, we're calling it a top 10. But man, I'm going to reread the series again. I already know it. I could just flip to any page. I could literally flip to any page and I would just be thrilled. Like this is such a 5-star book. It's such a 5-star book. There's not 1 second of these books that I want back. Like there's not even 1 paragraph where I was bored. There's not even 1 word that I felt was like, I don't know how many, I don't know, man. I loved it all so much. And I will gush about these books. These books are criminally underrated. I think that this series is just so, it just really it hasn't found its audience. And I know there's an audience for it because I know that this type of story is really popular in like TV and movies. Like I really want this to be adapted. I really, the day this gets adapted, my soul is going to leave my body. Like I will be dead on sight. Like I will scream if they ever announce. Somebody has purchased the rights to it and they haven't done anything with it. But man, so good. So that is my top 10/14 books of 2021. I would love to hear your top 10 reads of this year. Please let me know in the comments. I will leave my Instagram, Goodreads, and Twitter all in the description as well for you to check out if you feel so inclined. Have a great day. Bye.